Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Tony and Dakota podcast. Today, we got a real special guest called Joe Dirtaruski. And Tony's going to introduce him.
This is Jake McDonald. Jake is 24 years old. He owns Onsite Tree Services, where he does tree removal, tree trimming, stump grinding, and slabbing services. He's insured and bonded. And we actually met Jake. I think the first time we met Jake, we were at the Level Up project with Joel Kopus in Kendallville in a restaurant, which is a very small town in Indiana. And I think Jake was the person who was asking the most questions. He was picking everything apart, and he was like, I'm going to get the most out of this thing. And so we learned to respect Jake and came to know him pretty well. And then he ended up going with us to a seminar that we brought to Fort Wayne, had a really good time with him there, and just come to know and respect and appreciate this dude, Jake McDonald.
Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, cool chance to talk a little bit, and I'm sure we'll honor some cool things.
Yeah,
so.
You excited?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, probably the highlight of my week as far as things I actually wanted to do. So
That's awesome.
Let's go. Sorry we don't have alcohol on this one.
It'll be all right. We'll make it.
Bobby and Logan have some alcohol in their podcast.
I haven't got an invite to that, though, so...
Yeah, exactly.
They'll invite, after they see you on this, they'll be like, oh, Tony and Dakota did it? I think that's what ended up making them do the podcast in the first place, right?
Everybody's thought about doing a podcast.
I'm not. I don't need any more projects, dude. No.
He's like, I want no more responsibilities.
No, that's the truth.
I like it.
So, Jake, we talked about this a little bit. You wanted to bring entrepreneurship back to your school because you saw the community and how there was a need for it. You're a young guy, and you own a decent-sized company. Where did you get the confidence? Like, how did you decide that it was right for you, and how did you get started?
With the business, you mean?
Yeah.
Man, honestly, I worked a couple jobs. I hated school. School was never working out for me. Always in trouble. Not major trouble. I wasn't fighting and stuff. Just acting up, doing dumb stuff. I mean, like I brought a cat to school in a duffel bag one time. Just like I wanted to make it. I wanted to make it as informal as possible all the time, just because I hated it so much. And I got
like accidentally brought a cat in, or
no,
like
it was intentional. Yeah. But they did have a really, really good vocational program, and I jumped into that because, you know, it was going to get me out of the classroom. I got certified in welding, and I didn't love it, but it was cool. I got to work with my hands, and that was important to me. So I got a couple jobs. I bounced around a little bit doing fabrication and heavy equipment repair. The first job I had was super cool and liked it, but it just wasn't going to be a match money-wise long-term because I was getting married and knew that I, you know, was going to be doing something with my life where I was going to need more than what I was making. Second job I had, and I don't feel bad about saying this, it was terrible. The people were terrible. Not all the people. There's some nice people there.
What was it?
It was Boyd's. I'm not saying it's not a place you like can't go make a living, and maybe it's a match for some people, but I hated it. It was it was heavy equipment repair.
Okay.
I mean, you can go make a living there, and you know, maybe for some people that's cool, but I just hated it. I hated it. And I knew that was probably when I was first kind of, you know, figuring out what were my dreams a little bit. And I didn't really know exactly, but I knew it was going to involve making more than $17 an hour.
Yeah.
So I went up to the trailer factories and this was kind of my first introduction to making, you know, more than, you know, 15 or $20 an hour. Because I heard you could make crazy money up at the trailer factories. The trade-offs were that you had to get up at 3 a.m. and I mean, it was going to be like, it's the hardest physical work you can do there. I mean, you literally just run production. They don't care about you. They don't care about anything except for getting the work done. Yep. You know, there's some cool people there, but the whole culture around that place is we're getting it done and getting it out the door. Yeah. And so you can really take much pride in your work. And again, I was inside again. So I went up, and some people get stuck there. Some people get locked into a lifestyle where, you know, they can make 80 grand a year doing production work, and that's awesome. Like, I just wanted more. And
which is a lot of money around here.
That's a ton of money around here. If you're making 80 grand here, you are high on the hog, man. Like, if you just got, like, you know, a couple kids, wife, and just a mid-range house, like, you're high on the hog if you're making 80 grand here. Yeah. And for, you know, you can be a high school dropout and go make that.
Right.
So people get locked into that, but I just knew, like, when I was going there, I knew I wasn't getting locked into it. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going to make some money, and then that was going to push me into whatever I was doing next. And yeah, I mean, by the end, I think I worked there almost 2 years, and you know, I work with some really nice folks and some people that I'm still friends with now. But just the culture really pushed me out. And I ended up actually hating that so much that I told myself, I was like, I would rather die. Like, I actually rather die than keep doing this. So I fooled around with like some of my hobbies and stuff and seeing what, you know, maybe I can make a little bit of money on. I always did woodworking, and I think I'm still on track for the question, but stop me if I'm not.
No, it's good.
So I just started fooling around with some hobbies, seeing if I could make money on the side and whatnot. Started working. I was doing like a little bit of milling, just milling some live edge stuff, because that was when like live edge slabs were really, you know, in, and I think I made a few $1,000s like milling slabs. I was like, this is awesome, you know, some decent side money. And pretty quickly that turned into, well, what else could I do? You know, and I think I was like getting people's trees out of their yards, and I wasn't charging them. Like, I was just taking them away for free as long as I could have the logs. And then someone stopped me and they're like, are you stupid? And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, I thought it was great. And, you know, you can get paid for that. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it. So I dug into that a little bit, found some connections online. This is going to sound crazy to people that are listening to it, but it'll sound very crazy to anyone who's a professional in the tree industry. But I started a tree care company with zero experience whatsoever. And the arboriculture industry is the most dangerous industry year over year as far as like service jobs in America go. More people die in the tree care industry than any other industry. But yeah, I guess I hated my job enough, and I knew my dreams were bigger than what I was gonna be able to get working at any 9-to-5 or any, in that case, 3-to-2. But yeah, I just needed something bigger, and I was ready to make the jump, and it just seemed like the natural option. So
that's awesome. When we were talking about the vocational side of your high school, and then you were saying that it was awesome because you got to work with your hands, I've met guys too who are like upset with me because I don't do the work myself, kind of thing. Like when they like have something against us. They're like, hard work never hurt nobody kind of mentality, and kind of like, why don't you guys do the work yourselves? That's like reprehensible that you don't. And now I know that you sort of have your hand in both. Did you feel that way toward folks who like had more of a business but were not active?
No, dude, I wanted to figure out how they were doing it. Like, to me, if you're figuring it out, I mean, if you're not taking handouts, if you're not you know, doing people wrong, I mean, why not? You know, I mean, because what I'm struggling with right now is like, there's only so much you can do as a person. And so to me, you're almost, I mean, for example, the storm we just had that came through really bad, I was so under manpower. Like, I didn't have a tenth of the resources I needed, manpower or equipment wise.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate?
It's not like what you see on HGTV.
We created a course to show you how to really invest and create a profitable flipping and wholesaling business.
We give you marketing strategies like how to pull lists, who we target, and where we find the money.
We go over sales, which includes live calls and negotiations, scripts, role-playing, and so much more.
Everything that you need to know to flip houses is in this course. And if there's anything that we missed, we will create a video to answer your specific question.
This knowledge has made us over $1 million, and we're selling it today for just $997. Click the link below.
What benefit is it to anybody if you're providing a legitimate service? What benefit is it to anybody for you to be understaffed and under-equipped? Like, that makes no sense. It makes no sense. So no, I've never been like, oh, it must be nice, or look down at that at all. It's like, why would you not want to do that? You know, especially if you're providing real value, why would you not want to do that?
What does your business look like right now? Like, how many people do you have on? And
I've got 3 full-time guys, a gal that runs my social media, and moving into some other stuff with her too, and then me. So we got if you're going to call me a full-time guy, we got 4 full-time guys and a part-time gal, and then my wife, who I could not do it without, who runs everything on the back end, gets papers for me, documents I need, is the go-between for taxes and paperwork, payroll, insurance, that type of stuff. So it's definitely a team effort. But as far as like full-time people on payroll, it'd be 3 besides me.
Okay. You were talking to me about storms and insurance companies and claims and like the raking in a bunch of money. I don't know if you want to say the numbers or not, but maybe just for people who are like excited about being an arborist, it might encourage them. And then you can also tell them about all the times when you're like not bringing in any money because it's like not the right season for it and that sort of thing. So talk a little bit about like the crazy stuff that's going on right now, because we just had a huge windstorm. It was wind, thunder, hail. It feel like at times it only lasted for like 5 or 10 minutes or something like that. And then there was just all these trees down, like all kinds. It was a huge mess. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so every industry is going to be different, and I'm totally convinced that there's going to be opportunity for someone who's willing to look for it and go find it. There's going to be major opportunity for anybody in any industry. For us, that looks like disaster relief right now, because the tree industry is like decades behind as far as people, equipment, standard practice. I think it's probably because some of that like old school, like blue collar mentality, like, oh, just go get it done, right? And so for a long time, it was just guys rocking around with, $3,000 bucket trucks they found on the side of the road and cutting trees and putting dinner on the table for their families. Nothing against that, but a lot more dangerous, worse in almost every way and for everybody. Just in the last 5 years, I would say that the tree industry started to make some big strides, and that's opening new doors. And of course, like, there's going to be resistance to it. People in the industry, especially guys with old school mindsets, they're going to have, resistance to it. They're going to have issues with it. But the reality is the way that the disaster industry is moving is better for everybody. It's better for homeowners. It's better for us. It's safer. It's way safer. And so, yeah, with what that looks like for us right now, we're trying to respond to, disaster events faster and with better equipment and with more manpower than really we've ever seen before in the country. And that's happening. I think there's a good example of that a couple weeks ago when the Tri-Lakes area got hit. We had 8 crane crews from, I think we had a guy, as far as equipment and manpower, we had Minnesota, Utah, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, South Carolina, and a couple other states too, as far as equipment and people that were there helping. I think we took care of, I think there was 65 or 67 houses with trees on them. And we got all of that work done in like a 10-day span or a 12-day span. Without that network that I happen to be linked into, I would still be taking trees off houses right now, because we just don't have the resources here in Northern Indiana. It's not here. So that being said, the way that work is billed is changing a lot too. I think that people in the tree industry are finally getting paid what they're worth to do that kind of work. And I've gotten accused of all kinds of things in the past relating to insurance work. And the thing I found with that is I've never had a storm where everybody was happy afterwards. It's like somehow because you got involved and you did the work, then some people will just transpose that to like, it must be your fault that the tree fell on their house at some point, so they just won't be happy about something. But yeah, we were able to. Stormwork's been a bit. Excuse me. Stormwork's been a big part of our year-over-year growth, and it's becoming more and more of a part of it. We're able to make a fair amount of money in a pretty short amount of time. That being said, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's I mean, I had probably 115 hours on that first week, and then I probably had 100 to 105 the second week. And I haven't had a week that was less than 80 hours in probably a month and a half. Wow. It is not a get rich quick scheme. I mean, there's major cost associated. You know, I've hardly seen my wife in a month and a half. Of course, she was, you know, gracious enough to be fine with me coming here tonight and giving up some time. I would have been able to see her. You know, you make those decisions with a goal in mind, and I definitely have a goal in mind for it. You know, to eventually not work that hard and not do that much. But as from a business perspective, the industry getting advanced here and people being willing to kind of push into the unknown and figure out, you know, how do we serve customers best here? How do we help people the fastest? And how do we get paid what we're worth? There's going to be resistance on that from multiple angles, but it's moving, it's changing, and I really believe this is best case scenario for everybody. So I don't know if I really answered your question there. I just thought I'd talk about it a little bit.
No, it makes sense.
I like it. So I want to go back and talk about like your mindset, because I remember when I was doing landscaping and I was doing physical labor, I wasn't working like freaking 100 hours a week. I was working more like, you know, 60 to 80, but I was still working a lot. Then I see these guys in the freaking suits and I'm like, bro, I can outwork you. Like, why do you look more successful than me, and like, why are you like that? But it was my mindset that was the shift, and most people don't notice that subtle shift in your mindset or what you said. So instead of being angry at people, it's interesting how when you're angry and then you think, oh, like, you know, they're doing something wrong, or like they're doing things that instead of asking like, what could I be doing, you're looking at them as almost like a bad person in a way. Now you're telling yourself that like making a lot of money is bad, or doing this certain thing is bad, but your mindset was completely different, where it's like, okay, how can I accomplish the same thing, which is really the question that you have to ask. So my question is, how did you develop that? Or like, were you always that way? Because I don't feel like you were that way in high school, unless maybe you were, but you tell us. How did you develop that?
I don't think I had I think some people just have a natural inclination to, you know, maybe be victims or just make excuses. And I've definitely been there. I mean, in parts of my life, I'm sure I'm still there. You know, that's not like a cut and dry thing necessarily, and it can creep back in if you let it. But I don't think I ever had a inclination to just automatically assume that like someone was bad that had money. Or someone that was bad that was successful.
Well, let's say another thing then, like basically how Tony talked about bad if you're not working with your hands or whatever, because that's probably something that you've seen or felt at least at some point, but maybe not. I mean,
no, honestly, what it looked like for me is I was like, damn, I bet those people are miserable. Like, yeah, to sit at a desk. Like, it never occurred to me that someone actually wanted to do something that wasn't like working with your hands, and I was just like, man, those guys' lives suck. But so I think that was kind of my mindset on it. I don't think I necessarily ever, you know, demonized or tried to, you know, feel like a victim because other people had success. There's definitely been times where it was frustrating to me, but it was never frustrating like I'll never be able to have that. It was frustrating like these people aren't special. Like, I'm like, they're not better than me. Like, why can I not have that? And then like, but I also think that was probably one of the better things about me that, you know, has allowed me to make some big strides growth wise, is I think some of my initial reaction when I see that is, if I don't want it, I can just be happy for that person. Mm-hmm. And if I do want it, then I'm like, they're doing it. Yep. Like, obviously I can figure it out and I can do it.
So how did you develop that then? Or did you always have that?
I wouldn't say I always had that. I think from a young age, I didn't have great family structure. But you know, something that was good out of that was I was left to just figure things out on my own quite a bit. And so I think from a young age, me being left alone just to do things on my own, I was also a super creative kid. So I was always trying to build little mechanical devices or, you know, stuff like that just to see if I could get it to work. And I think, like, because I was such a young age and already seeing at that point that like, if I fiddle with this long enough, like, you know, I can make something work here. I think that gave me some self-belief at a pretty young age, like probably 6 to 10 years old, because I would have like small levels of success. And so I think at that point, like I started to understand, like, you don't necessarily have to play by somebody else's rules, because I got told I was dumb or no all the time, you know, particularly by my old man, like, it, you know, and, you know, I wasn't going to listen to John about that. So I think from the age of like 6, I probably started realizing that like I can make these things work, and I started seeing results of that from a young age. So I think that was kind of a natural progression, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Gotcha. Was there anything like that you did like recently to develop it even more? Like, do you listen to books, read books, or anything like that?
Oh man, I think you gotta stay on that like all the time, because what I have realized is if you don't stay on top of your mentality, and if you don't stay consciously aware of what you're doing and what you're not doing, you will slip back into a poor me mindset. And I mean, that happens. And I think I'm at a point now where most of the time when that happens, I can recognize it pretty quickly and pretty early on and, you know, get a hold of it. But, you know, sometimes I'll get drug into a pit where that takes 2 or 3 weeks to get out of. But I hate that feeling so much that I'm just not willing to like sit there. 'Cause I can't stand that feeling.
Yeah.
Because I'll think back, and I'm really introspective, and I'll think back and I'll think about all the times that I was coming up to something that felt insurmountable, and I figured it out. And like, I didn't have a playbook on it. I didn't have anyone telling me how to do it. And I just, at the end of the day, if you want to make something happen, you will make it happen, or you'll make an excuse as to why, and then you'll be miserable the rest of your life. So, you know, there's really only one option for me when it comes down to it.
So what do you think the difference is then between like between people who are like successful and the people who are not? Do you think it's that exact thing, or what do you think that defines somebody?
I think that's not a simple thing. I think that's multifaceted, because number one, everyone's version of success is going to be different. I would say it's probably a primary of maybe 2 or 3 things. And one is, ask that one more time. I want to make sure I'm staying on track with
Just what the difference is between successful people and unsuccessful people.
So first of all, I think some people would claim that they're successful just because they don't want to feel bad about what they're getting. I think the sooner you kick that out the door and like really accept what you want in life, the better. But I think it's probably a willingness to take responsibility, primarily a willingness to take responsibility for everything in your life. Even the shit that isn't your fault. 'Cause I've had a lot happen to me. I'm only 24, but I've just had a lot happen. And a lot of it's been tough. And I've realized by this point in life that you pay in one form or another for everything. No one rides for free. And it's not always a financial price. It could be a financial price. It could be an emotional price. It could be a relationship price. But you pay. And an example of that is, let's just take a really easy one. You buy a car, salesman lied to you, I don't know, or maybe everyone was just honest, the transmission falls out of it a week after you buy it. You don't have any money. That's not your fault, you know, and I definitely sympathize with a person like that. Yeah, I mean, it's not your fault, and that sucks. That being said, what good does it do you to, you say, yeah, that sucks, that's not my fault, one time. Who's gonna do anything about that? Like, what do you want? What do you want? Like, it's your life, you know. Go make something happen, because nobody else is going to. Nobody else is going to. And I think it's a willingness to take responsibility for your life and accept that you're going to be responsible for things that were not your fault. And the sooner you can understand that your responsibilities don't stop at your actions, I think that's where real progress for me started.
Yeah.
because I'm responsible for a lot outside of direct results of my actions.
Yep.
And you have to be willing to shoulder that, or you're not going to go anywhere. You're just not.
Yeah.
So
that's something that Tony and I talk a lot about, and we definitely believe 100%. And I definitely 100% agree with that, because I was just talking to somebody actually at lunch today, and talking about purpose and like what my purpose is. And I feel like it's to talk to the people who are like lower class and poor, who stay in that mindset of it's other people. I'm mad at these people. They're rich. I'm not. And like, just for everybody out there too, I'm going to tell you guys one of the biggest lies ever that you probably hear if you're poor. It takes money to make money. That is a lie. That is 100% a lie. And poor people say it, and they try to use it as an excuse to stay poor. But yeah, the main thing is like, man, like the people don't realize that it's their mindset that keeps them poor. And you change your mindset somehow, some way, order is always there. But that's the reason that like you can go on and do stuff, because you're willing to take responsibility for everything. And it's actually empowering, even though most people feel it disempowering. They feel like, oh, I'm not to blame for this. They want to play the victim, but really it's their mindset. So is there anything else that you could think of to help like shift? Like, let's say you're in that poor mentality and like you're blaming everybody else. Is there anything that you could think of tangible that you've done or you've seen work that can help change other people's mindset and like get out of that victim mentality?
that's a tough one, because I think at some point, man, there is no substitute. You have to want it. There's not a magic bullet. There's not a... You are the X factor. Mm-hmm. Nobody is going to make that happen for you, except for you. And I've wasted too much of my time and too much of my life trying to get people to change that just weren't going to. And something I've realized is you're not going to force anybody into anything, and they're going to have to want it. Mm-hmm. So if you want it, and I tell people this, you know, like I'll see someone complaining on Facebook, you know, like I lost my kids, I can't hold a job, you know, life sucks, I just can't win, and I'll call them out on it. You know, because, like, it, you know, no one really comments on those posts. Like, it just flies under the radar, and, like, no one wants to hear it, you know. And, like, I'll comment on that. I'm like, if you want help, call me, text me. And I will put my phone number, my personal cell phone, in the comments. You know how many phone calls I've got? None. 0. Yeah. You have to want it. And if you don't...
Let's just say somebody does call you, man. I call you up. I'm like, hey, Jake.
Calling me.
Hey, Jake. What's up, man? You told me to call you. My life sucks right now. It's horrible.
And Jake's like, this is 100% your fault.
No, wait.
I mean, yeah, we would get into that in about minute 2 of the conversation.
Man, I was hoping that, you know, I could borrow like a couple $100. You commented, gave me your phone number. I just want to see, like, if you're planning on giving me money, or like, how can you help me?
Okay, so actually, I take that back. I did have one guy get a hold of me one time, hit me up for cash.
Okay, yeah, so that's the most common thing that I would guess that somebody would contact you for.
Yeah, and he's a guy I knew in high school, and he said, "Man, can I bum $20 or $40? I don't remember what it was. It wasn't much." He's like, "I just need gas to get to this job." And I was like, and he's like, "I'll pay you back Friday. Get paid." I was like, "Yeah, but it's not a loan, because I don't do loans. So you can have this money." And then I think I asked him to you know, talk to me more about it. You know, because I was like, I'll help you with this if you want to unpack it. And you know, that was all it ever was. And you know, I've seen him hitting other people up on Facebook for money after that. You know, but he didn't want to talk about it. You know, he didn't want to sort through it and get to the root of it. And you know, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think you can make somebody want it. So I don't even try. You know, if someone has questions, man, like, I'm available. I will sacrifice way more time than I probably should telling anybody else everything I know, because that's a big part of why I'm where I'm at today, is people sacrificing way more time than they probably should have to help me. So if you want it, like, I'm your guy, call me. But and if you just want to make excuses, I just, I'll give you some tough love. And if you don't respond to it, like, I'm not going to chase you down. Like, that's your call.
Yeah. That's interesting too, that you talk about just like the money. It's interesting to me that people ask for $20, $40 or like, they ask for a couple $100. Like, it's just interesting that they think that's going to fix their problem. And it's like, man, you guys have a way bigger problem than this.
Yeah, but you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you've never experienced anything better, I think there's got to be, I don't know what the catalyst is going to be different for everybody, right? And I'm not going to pretend, and that's another reason I'm not really going to chase people down on it, is because I'm not going to pretend to know what that's going to be for them. But I've seen it hit people, and I know it hit me, and it's hit me at various points. But whenever you have one of those moments where something happens and you have a realization that I gotta take responsibility for this, like there's nobody else to blame, then I'll dive. I've always probably cared less than I should about how much people know about me. So we'll just dive into the biggest change for me ever was I was abusive narcissist when me and my wife got married. It was terrible. I was John. I was my old man, and living in total denial of it. Hiding it in some ridiculous religious cloak. Yeah, my wife and I ended up splitting up, and we were separated for a good while. And I was living by myself at home. I had this was like very early stages of the business. And what I had to level with on that was like nobody was around and I was still pissed. I was still miserable. I was still angry. Who was I gonna blame, dude? So like that was probably one of the hardest things, not probably, and not one of it. It is the hardest thing I've ever had to level with, is that everything I had built this fake life around me where, my perception of things, I was just kind of building my perception of things to be whatever I wanted them to be, with zero concern for how somebody else felt. Zero concern for how my wife felt, how, other people because I did care about people, but I had no ability to actually take other people into consideration, it seemed like. So yeah, Rhea split, which she absolutely should have. And I was just, by myself. And that was the single most impactful thing that ever happened to me in my life, because my options were shoot myself or accept that I had been building and living a lie and, get committed to flipping that entire thing and restarting. And I did. And, several years later, and it's not perfect, and I'm not going to say like, oh, everything's like, no, like those abusive and narcissistic tendencies are still there if I, don't stay on top of it, and if I don't let them be. But I think that was the biggest point for me where I realized you have to want it and nobody can want it for you. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so when was that like moment that you actually shifted then? Because a lot of people stay there where they're just going to be pissed off. Oh, it's my ex-wife's problem, it's this. They stay there, dude, for the rest of their life. Like, literally, there'll be people that are mad at somebody for 20 years. Was there, like, do you remember a specific moment where you're like, oh, snap, these are my two options? Like, was there a moment?
I mean,
Are you letting deals fall through the cracks because you don't have good systems in place?
We've been there before, and we've tried several different CRMs, and RE Simply has been the best.
RE Simply tracks your KPIs, does automatic follow-ups for you, and even records your incoming phone calls.
The system is simple to use and has more features than we even know what to do with.
If you're looking for a great CRM, try RE Simply today. We put the link in the description. Check it out now.
You know, it's been a minute, and I don't want to detract from the legitimacy of that by filling in the gaps on what I actually remember. So I'm not going to fabricate anything.
Yeah.
It was that experience, and it was that very specific timeline. But, you know, was there a moment? I'm sure there was a couple moments where I was putting pieces of that together.
Was there anybody or anything that changed it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a group effort of people that were willing to support me. A couple of my brothers, my wife, who I have no idea how she, you know, didn't just ditch completely.
Yeah.
But even though those people were willing to stick around and support me and support change, like, they weren't making the change happen.
Right.
And, you know, we went through some of that where I was like, you know, there might have been like a small period where I was, you know, expecting them to do something. And I just think I realized pretty quickly, like, you know, if I ever slumped into that kind of attitude, it's like, well, no, like, I'm going to actually have to make the change here. So it's somewhat of an intangible, and it's actually what I would probably consider one of my best, though very few good attributes. One of my best is that I just consider myself a doer. And that's not always, like, that's got me in hot water before, you know, and it's got me in over my head a few times as well, but I wouldn't trade it, because it's gotten me out of wasting my life in multiple ways. So and I don't have a magic bullet for anybody. I really don't. And I don't have this single magical experience. The most magical thing that's ever happened to me is when I just realize that it's my life. And if I don't personally take control of it and make things happen, then nothing was going to change. Yep. That is the magical. If you want this, if you want the silver bullet, if you want the answer, and it's not glamorous, and it's not you realize it one day and then everything's good the next. And I think that's why so many people walk away from it, is because it's a daily commitment. Mm-hmm. You don't want it every day, and you got to make that choice.
Yeah. What does your relationship look like now, and how did you modify what your behaviors previously, and then did you create any sort of like structure or
dude, don't talk about structure procedure with me. I hate structure.
Well, even mentally, even if it's not something that you like wrote down and like you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do different. Like these 3 things or 3 things.
Can we call it principles? Does that fit?
Yeah. Principles or bullet points. What does your relationship look like now, and what things did you implement?
With my wife?
Yeah.
First of all, I work too much. So it's not like my wife and I have this glamorous relationship where we take beachfront vacations and walk in the sand. And
well, you might someday.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, but it's not time for that yet. Me and my wife communicate pretty well. I genuinely respect her as a person. I genuinely appreciate her, and I genuinely care about her. And I honestly think those were the biggest changes that needed to happen. And yeah, I don't want to get super far into the weeds of what it takes to overcome narcissism, because it's like one of my least favorite conversations, and I actually don't know all that much about it other than I beat it for the most part. I think some of those tendencies stick around, but I mean, you know, my relationship with my wife, you know, it's not perfect. No marriage is perfect. It's a far cry from perfect, but it's functional. It's healthy. Definitely gets strained at times, especially with how much I work. But you know, that's not the long-term goal. Yes, I'm not a structured person at all, but I am a guy that operates off principles. And it's going to sound silly, and a lot of these things are like super elementary, and people listen to this are going to be like, he must have been terrible. and I was. But I mean, right down to the basics. It wasn't anything special. It was just the basics, like respect that my wife is an independent person, respect that my wife matters as much as I do, and respect her opinion on things. And like those were things I was not capable of when we got married. And I think understanding those things really changed how I communicated and interacted with people in general as well. So, yeah, those have been nothing short of critical for me.
Do you know Josh Grange? He's a tiling contractor out of Kendallville.
Is his business named Grange something?
Nah, I don't think so. We just had him on not too long ago, and he was saying that he like sits down with a coach with his wife, and they kind of figure out like a vision together. Because I felt like that was a problem in my relationship. I'm divorced, and it was that I didn't have a vision that included my wife, like my end goal, like my end vision, my plan, that sort of thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting, like something to think about is like what is our together goal, like just besides our ambitious entrepreneur goals, you know?
Well, frankly, my goal with my wife for the last few years has been her not dying. So like it really hasn't been, like, frankly, there hasn't been room for, you know, and Rhea's a go-getter. Her big thing is lifting and athletics. And she loves that, and that's what she goes after hard. Sorry about that. Her kidney disease has really pumped the brakes on that, because without getting like way into the weeds on what her diagnosis is and what all that entails, physical activity actually makes it worse and flares it up. So that's been like a constant battle, because, you know, it's one of the primary means, that is the primary means of her maintaining like good mental health and being able to, you know, operate well in just the day-to-day stuff, is, you know, having that outlet and for her ambition, and that's been really tough for her. I don't know that I would say her medical condition is a ton better. It's definitely better than it was, because she almost died a few times. You know, blood clots in her lungs, kidneys pretty much totally shut down. They weren't filtering protein at all. Like she gained like 25 pounds of water weight in like 2 weeks, and like my wife is not big. She's like 120, 130 pounds. So I'm bad right now. I'm losing track where I'm going. People are going to listen to this podcast and be like, what is this guy talking about? He needs some sleep or something. So we haven't, I don't know if I want to say the luxury. We haven't had the luxury of really putting together like, you know, big simultaneous goals and ambitions. Like she trusts the direction that I take us. And I probably drag us through the weeds more than I should sometimes, and I've acknowledged that to her. And I've got to, so if Rhea's listening to this, which she probably will, honey, I'm committed to not strapping us for cash as bad as I always do when we're trying to grow. So that's one thing. Because I think she would like a slower pace than what I've been running at. So I'm committed to that in the near future. You know, it's probably going to be a few years of still relatively high paced, but I think she just wants more time. And so, yeah, we're gonna, that's the goal for now, more time. She is pursuing, she's still pursuing athletics though. She's had to get kind of creative about how she's doing it and whatnot, but she's still pursuing athletics. So as far as like a joint vision, I just feel like that it just hasn't really, it might sound silly because we are obviously married and live in the same house, but it just, her medical stuff has been so crazy. It's literally been about like, how do we make sure that Rhea stays out of the hospital this month, you know?
Yep.
So
what does your vision look like then? Because I know you talk a lot about like, you know, you're like, man, I want to make money. And like, I can tell that you were obviously like motivated by money, especially the way that you speak in your earlier days. Is like, man, I was like, I want to go here because it makes more than $20 an hour. I want to go work in the trailer factory. And I remember being in that same spot where I'm like, man, I almost ended up in a trailer factory because I was like, oh, you can make this much money, be out by this much time, and I'll freaking kill it or whatever. But now, like, you know, you could be making all this money, and you probably are making some good money, but now it's all reinvested into the same thing. So you're not actually getting to keep as much money as what people think. So, like, what is your big vision and, like, why you're doing it all? Like, obviously, there's an end goal in mind, but, like, you're sacrificing, you're working way more than you ever would, and you're probably actually getting less money right now than you ever do, too. So, what's your vision?
So, yeah, we, if I told you our gross numbers, you'd be like, Jake's making good money. And, yeah, the business is making good money, but
Sure. Jake's
Jake's wearing the same clothes that he's been wearing for the last 3 years and buys a new pair of boots every 2 years. And
Yeah, we know what that's like.
yeah, so I mean, my dreams. I want to own my family farm that is just outside of Columbia City. There's kind of two pieces of it. I want to own them both at some point. My grandpa and his cousin own them now, and thankfully they're in good health. You know, I'm not pushing anyone to the grave here, and to me it sounds weird to talk about your ambition while, you know, someone's still alive, but
I mean, you could buy from them, give them a certain percentage and stuff too. Like if it.
oh no, I mean they own it. I mean that they, you know, they've been there the whole lives. Like they're gonna own that farm, you know. But at some point when it comes time for that to change hands, like I want to be in a position where I can do that and I can keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Because, you know, otherwise I don't know that anyone else would really want it.
They're on board with that too. They want you to.
I mean, yeah, to some degree.
Because there's a right of first refusal. You got options contracts. You know, you got options just to make sure you're first in line to buy it if it ever goes up for sale.
I'm not gonna put anyone in a position where, basically, to me, that stuff is just stressful, and I really don't like commitments, and that sounds bad. I don't like any kind of, no. I don't like finding out a time period later that I put my foot in my mouth about something. I really, really hate that. I hate having to walk back things that I've said. So, and I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I don't know what's going to change. It's not going to be up to me what happens to those places. And, you know, and there's, you know, there's kids in line in both situations, and it's not going to be up to me. So I'm going to be ready. I'm going to do my best to be ready. But my dream's not going to hinge on that. You know, if that doesn't work out, you know, I'll go find something
Better
different.
farm.
What's that?
Go find a better farm.
I don't know about that. Those farms are pretty special, dude.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, frankly, if I can be retired when I'm 35, and, you know, maybe, you know, still have the tree service, but I mean, not really mess with it, and, you know, maybe just do some investing and just work on my passion projects, I'll be good with that.
I was just saying, what does retired look like for you? Because obviously that's a very weird term. Like Tony and I could retire right now, but the lifestyle that we want to live is not the lifestyle that we want. So what does retired look like for you?
Yeah, I want to own as much property as possible, and I basically my life's work at that point will be restoring native wildlife, both plant and animal species, and trying to create the most authentic version of what the native habitat would have looked like before it was turned into farm ground. And then I just really love the idea of subsistence living. You know, I want a little bit of pasture ground, raise a few hogs, a few sheep, a few goats, a few cows every year, a big orchard, vineyard, fish in the pond, fish in the creek, hunt. And I have a major passion for two things. I love all things outdoors, but like my two biggest passions are hunting with dogs and mature whitetails. Those are like, I could spend all, if I only had those two things for hobbies, it wouldn't matter. I'd do them 12 hours a day. It doesn't matter. So,
You hunt with your dogs. You hunt for coons?
we hunt all kinds of stuff. I've personally hunted coons, squirrels, bears recently. And, you know, they'll go after anything. You know, they'll tree or den up anything. So, you know, we've killed a lot of stuff with them. Some feral cats here and there too. So, but primarily I squirrel hunt and coon hunt, and then I take a few trips Last year was actually my first couple trips bear hunting, but that's definitely going to be an annual trip now. So I'll bear hunt with them a few times a year.
How big are the bears?
It's like, I keep getting too far from this, I bet. It's like Appalachian range bears. So it's not like you'll see like
300 pounds?
That would be a massive bear for being a mountain bear. Like
Okay.
they just don't have access to very much food up there. Like they're eating wild grapes, hickory nuts, walnuts, acorns, grasses.
So the bears are only like twice as big as the dogs.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly. Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
your bears out there are going to be 100 to 250 pounds.
I was like, dude, I'd be worried about my dogs, like chasing
the
down
dogs
a
get-
bear.
the dogs
I've
will
seen
get
some
torn up,
Kodiaks
man.
before.
The dog, these are just black bears. I mean, still very capable animals, you know, and the dogs definitely will get torn up if they get too close or they get in too tight on one or something. But
But the dogs know.
without going, I will take up this entire time to talk about my dogs, but I'm not going to. So that's what they're bred for. They're probably one of the most primitive breeds in existence. They're called West Siberian Laikas. They originated in the taiga wilderness in Siberia, just with like the native people there, and they were a dog that was bred and born into a subsistence lifestyle. So you have a very well-adapted dog to dangerous living, dangerous conditions, and dangerous animals. They hunt everything from moose to squirrels with them, and I mean everything in between. So
That's awesome. I can tell you that my vision for retirement looks a lot different than yours.
just a little bit.
Yeah, but dude, I love it. I love hearing that.
Oh,
like,
it'd still be fun to like go over and hang out with Jake for a week or
absolutely.
something like that.
Dude, I could do what you do. I'd do that for a month, dude. But like for retirement, it's like, I got like a couple other things I want to do.
Dude, I don't understand how anyone could want anything but that for
See,
retirement.
that's amazing, dude. Because I could do it, and I would love to do it for just a little while. Like I think
for
it's
an
fun.
experience.
Yeah, exactly, for an experience. But
I
it's
want
not-
that for my reality.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I love that you've actually thought about what it looks like and like what really like you're working towards, because that's important. I think that a lot of people, myself included, like I get so caught up into what's next step, that I forget where am I going and what happens when I get to the last step and I'm in the wrong freaking direction. I'm not actually working towards my goals, and I feel like as people, I'm sure you've experienced this, where you get so far going into your goal that you forget where you're even going or why you're going there.
Oh yeah, and then like all of a sudden you're unhappy and you're trying to figure out why, and you realize that like all of a sudden like the vehicle sort of like in your mind somehow became your reality of what your goal was going to be, and so you're sunk into this thought process of like, and this is just what I'm going to do for the rest of eternity.
Dude, I'm not like that.
I'll get there, and then I'll have to like manually stop and like pull myself out of it.
Yep. So my mindset is I never ever think that it's reality forever. What I think is I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. If I just keep suffering now, I'm gonna get there. And then I keep going. I keep going until I hit the goal that I previously set. And I hit the goal, but then I like sacrificed everything else because I kept telling myself, just hurry up and get there. Then 4 years go by. Cool, I hit the goal, and I was going at the wrong freaking place, and I realized that I'm not creating the life that I actually wanted. I just set one goal, and then I forgot everything else along the way. So it is interesting how we're doing the same thing, just different mindsets on like what's bringing us there.
Yeah, I think it's similar, similar in result at least.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. You're getting up with the same result, it's just a different way that you're processing it. That's awesome. Well, let's get into some final questions that we ask every single one of our guests. We kind of already went into this, but like...
Yeah, there were a couple. I feel like we kind of talked about your vision and your why. We talked about some of your struggles, just because right now with the way that things are going, it's like you're working 100 hours a week. So I imagine that's probably your biggest struggle right now.
Right now, I'm not. I'm back to the old 80, so we're doing pretty good. Actually, this week was slower. We got rained out a couple days, and I was doing work-related stuff pretty much the whole time, but it wasn't crazy. So
when we were talking earlier about like podcasts or books, is there anything or anyone in particular that you've read or listened to, or anybody who you like kind of allow to be your your mentor at a distance, or even a mentor in real life? Like, is there anything that people who are listening to this should go read or listen to?
I'm gonna disappoint you guys here. I've never completed a book since probably my freshman year in high school. I've dabbled a little bit here and there, and I've picked up maybe like some useful principles, things that I've definitely employed. But as far as like I don't really have an entrepreneurship Bible or even like something that I go to consistently. I'll just kind of pick from here and there, and honestly, if it's any one thing, it is Facebook and YouTube, man. And dude, there are so many people, there are so many entrepreneurs and business owners that are like 40 years old and crotchety and like, waddle around angry everywhere because life didn't turn out how they wanted it.
40?
And
Are you talking about
like,
the 55-year-olds or the
maybe,
60?
Listen,
40 is still pretty young, bro.
older guys that are established in what they do, and man, they will just trash. They're like, oh, this YouTube generation of entrepreneurs. It's like, dude, shut up. We're going to make $750,000 this year on YouTube. Like, shut up, please. But it's not just people like that, like, don't understand the depth of value. Two of my closest friends I met on Facebook and never knew them before that. Just met them in a tree page on Facebook. One of them lives in Georgia. The other one lives in Kokomo, Indiana. And like those guys have had major impact on me and my business. Like Ben was a Marine. Jordan was too. They're Marines. And I think Ben just learned a lot about organization and principle in his experience there. And really just employed that with his business. And man, he's just been on a rocket ship. And I've just copied him. Everything, like we text every day. We have a group message. We text all the time. And I just copy everything that he does, and it works. Awesome. So like people, man. And like the reason I don't really dig books and seminar, there are useful things and everything. The PSI was great. It was actually a big thing for me too. But man, if you can't interact with them on a daily basis, then to me, how valuable is it really? Because a lot of times what you're lacking isn't principle or knowing what the right thing to do is. A lot of the time what you're lacking is emotional support, people that care about you, and someone that is going to kind of level you out if you're having a really bad day. Because you still know those principles and you still know what you're supposed to do. And the fact of the matter is, like, sometimes things just don't work out that great. And as a human, you only have so much emotional bandwidth.
Yeah.
So, and find some people over literature. Find some people. Yeah, that's my big thing.
One thing that I would say about that or challenge you on would be just like you said, they're like, okay, here's going to be one, it's one event or one book or whatever. But it's not going to change your life. But if you do that every single day and you're asking yourself questions, because you're a very intellectual person and you ask yourself a lot of questions, what if that generates a better question that you could be asking yourself that'll change your life? So that's what I always think about. I was like, yes, it's one book, one event, but like those can change the path of your life, and you're one decision away from changing your life completely. So that's what I always think about whenever I'm listening to these books and stuff. Like, sure, maybe I wasted freaking 10 hours listening to a book, but I got one thing that just changed my life completely. And also it's consistent. So it's like daily. So I'm brainwashing myself into almost like becoming the person that I want to become. So that would be the only thing that I would encourage you on is, dude, you ask yourself a lot of questions. One other thing. I've noticed that the quality of a person's life usually comes for the quality of questions that they ask. You're already asking really good questions. I already see you as like a super successful intellectual person. I always think about what more can that person do. And I can tell you got so much more in you, like so much more that I would love if you, dude, you're 100% on. Get around the right people. Learn from them. 100%, 1000%. Dude, you add books into the mix or podcasts or something, you're going to go to another freaking level, even than what you thought you would. That would be the only thing I'd say.
So I jump around in that stuff, but this is going to sound somewhat ridiculous, but one of the commitments I made to myself when I was becoming self-employed was like, I'm not doing shit that I don't want to do anymore. And dude, I hate reading. I shouldn't say that. That's not true. So I've started probably 20 books, which isn't a big number for what a lot of guys read. But what I'll do is I'll just read till I find one of those aha moments, and I'll just quit reading. Like, I don't need anything else. Like, I know that, because what'll happen, let's just say you go, like, what is a person going to do if you throw 6 life-changing principles at them at once? They're going to be overwhelmed, and they're going to be like,
And pick 2.
I've seen people do none. Sure. Like, they'll get overwhelmed by it, and then they'll just do none. And I've seen that tendency in myself too. If I like oversaturate myself with new information, I just won't do anything. I won't do anything with it, and then I'll just feel useless because I know I have all this untapped potential and I'm not doing anything with it. So dude, I'll open a book and I'll read and I'll be like, okay, that's good, that's not what I'm looking for. And then like when I find it, like I know what it was, I just throw that, dude, I don't need anything else from that book. Like I throw it down and so that's where I think action trumps literature, because I know people that read a ton and they've been in business 3 times as long as I am, and I passed them.
Yeah.
Like
in that area, sure.
Like you don't always need more literature. Sometimes you just need some action.
Yep, no question. But what I would say is like you pass them in one area of their life, but what if they're having better relationships than you? Because now they're reading books where they're reading about relationships, or they have they feel better as a person and they're having a happier life. Just because you're passing them in one area doesn't necessarily mean that like you're more successful or anything. That's what I think about. It's like,
yeah,
you're looking at it like on a action, like one step, and really it's like multifaceted. Like you got spiritual, you got.
I already know what my answer is here, and I'm gonna level with you. I will make excuses around this one piece as long as you want to sit here for it. It doesn't matter if we sat here for 10 hours. I would continue coming up with creative excuses that aren't actually legitimate because I don't want to mess with it right now.
The only thing that I would say is like, I want you to do it. Just because I want you to do it because I want to see who you could become. I'm like, gosh dang.
I think
you're already gonna be somebody great.
It'd be interesting to see Jake with some of our masterminds, like at the Future Flipper Mastermind or stuff, because he would just be with people like asking them questions, and then they'd answer something, and he'd give them something else to think about, and they'd be like, dude, nobody's asking me these questions before. Like,
no, and I appreciate it, dude. That's how why I liked you so much, because you're asking questions out of curiosity. You're not asking questions out of ego. And so that's why I was like, dude, I appreciate this guy because he wants to know. You want to learn more, but like, it's all about the quality of the questions you're asking. And you already ask quality questions. So I was like, man, like I just know, yeah.
We got one last question. Want to make sure we try to get out on time. Dakota's going to be a little bit late. 65 years from now, you're on your deathbed.
I don't think I'm making it 65 years, but go ahead.
35 years from now, you're on your deathbed.
Dude, it's a win if I make it 20. That's all I'm saying.
20 years from now, you're dying. At the ripe age of 44.
Oh, man, when you say it like that, that's bad.
That sounds horrible.
Dude, it is what it is.
What is
one book in your entire life.
Yeah, his message is going to be like, don't read books. No. Go find people that know what you want to know.
Kinda.
What is your one message to the world? Could be a billboard in Times Square or some place where a lot of people are going to go by and see it. A paragraph, a thought, a sentence, like your legacy, like a message.
Go find out.
Say it again into the camera.
Oh, there's the camera. Go find out. Like, just do it. When I was working at the trailer factory, I was tossing around this idea. There was a few older guys there. I had a lot of people making fun of me when I said I was going to switch, and a bunch of people were like, "Yeah, he'll be back. Give him a month, he'll be back." There was 1 or 2 older guys there that told me, when I was your age, I thought about it, and now I spend most of my time wishing I would have. And that scared me. I was like, I'm out of here. Like, no, like it might not work out, but I'm going to go find out. Yep. I'm going to find out firsthand. And if it doesn't, I'll be able to sleep at night.
Yep. go find out what's in that book.
All right. That experience, not that book. You don't need that book.
All right. How can listeners get a hold of you if they want tree work done? If they want to reach
don't
out
need
to
any
you
more tree work
for
right now.
if they want $20, they want to bum $20 off of you. They want some life advice. Where can they get a hold of you?
If you are looking for tree work, please, God, do not call my personal number, because I just got this personal number a week ago and people are already calling it for trees. And I'm like, how did you get this?
Oh my gosh.
How did you get this? I've only given this to like my personal contacts.
Oh, they haven't been telling you that I'm your affiliate? You're
Yeah,
supposed to
no
be
joke.
giving me a fee for each one.
Dude, I will give you a fee if you want to field them. If you want to field them.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, guys, the charge. How big's the tree? Okay, cool. That'll be
20,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll be 25,000 per limb, and then be like, all right, Jake, just give me $1,000.
They're not serious.
I don't think I would close a lot of business that way.
Well, we'll field it for you, buddy. I'm a salesperson.
Dude, I don't even know what my personal number is now because I just got the phone and I haven't remembered it yet. But hit me up on Facebook. Find me on Facebook. I mean, this is where that's going to be. This is where,
Yeah, we'll put it on Facebook.
yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to listen to me ramble, if you want help, if you're serious about wanting to take some ownership in your life and figure out what you need to do to move the needle, shoot me a message. I will give you an absurd amount of time and effort if you're serious about it.
Do you need anything, like any way that anybody can support you?
Be patient with us. Be patient with us because we are embarrassingly behind right now.
Yep.
I think I've had 500 phone calls in the last month, and I've probably answered less than 250 of them.
Well, thanks for answering ours, buddy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So could you use employees or anybody that could help you out? And like, what do you usually like pay, or do you want to say any of that, or not really?
So we're in a spot right now where we already brought new people in, and we're in like a major transition, and we're training people, and so it's just not feasible for me to bring on like it's a weird situation because we already had to slow down to like make these transitions and you know, train people, and it's like the worst time possible to like be yeah, but it is what it is. But right now we just need to really focus on getting these new systems in place and getting everyone like up to top speed on, you know, the day-to-day operations. So, but we are making headway on that. So hopefully we can get that under control and moving at top speed soon.
Cool.
Awesome.
I feel like this was a super not about business and mostly about personal life podcast. But I think sometimes people think that they like separate them, but dude, it is not. It is not. Everything I do in the business affects my personal life, my wife, my family, everything. When I say my family, my sisters and my mom. I don't have kids, but like they are tied in.
Yep.
They're tied in. So
No question. Well, I mean, that's what we always try to do is this isn't like just about, you know, real estate or anything. 'Cause a lot of people think we're a real estate podcast. We want to talk about business, mindset, freaking family, all of it. Because again, we don't want to be too far one direction. We don't just want to be really good at business. We don't just want to be really good at real estate, guys. Like, we're human beings. Like, we want to actually live a life where we're fulfilled in every area, spiritually, like health-wise, business, all of it, dude. We want it all. And hopefully we can help other people to do that. And my biggest struggle is honestly probably the freaking personal and family. So spiritual, still working on too, man. So all that stuff, I feel like business is like, cool, like we're doing good over here. But it's not, again, as fulfilling as everybody thinks. So, yeah, man, appreciate you coming on, sharing your thoughts. Dude, I wish we could talk more because I feel like we would actually, like, help each other to elevate to another level because I
dude,
feel
hit
like
me up.
I know, we need to talk more, dude. I don't work as many hours as you, but I'm working a lot too. So
Dude, I'm telling you right now, I will go out of business before I keep working these hours because my wife deserves more, and yeah, we're getting that fixed up. So hopefully this is the last summer I'm putting these hours in.
Yep.
I know that.
I like it. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you guys for watching. See you on the next one. Peace out.